Wings. It looks like Wemyss, but it's a good Scottish name. And so I am a native Tennessean. I grew up in Waverly, and I have spent most of my life in Tennessee. My parents are from Hendersonville and Gallatin, respectively, mother and dad. And so we have lived in Paducah and the coast of North Carolina, but we've been back to Tennessee since 1992 in McMinnville, for those of you that are familiar with Bridgestone Firestone, and then they brought me up here to corporate. And so I live about 7 minutes from here over on the Percy Priest, South New Hope Road, if any of you know where that is. So what I am, I'm here to talk about the Tennessee State Guard, try to explain to you what the Guard is, because several of you have said, I don't know what the Guard is. So what are we? So here's what I thought we would do. We'll talk about who is the State Guard, the mission that we're here to accomplish for you as the citizenry of Tennessee, how we're organized, because that is important to the overall aspects of how we do business within the Guard. Talk about the different functionalities that we have in the Guard, because we're not just about radios. I am the S6 officer. For those of you that are not familiar with the FEMA line and the military line, S6 is a communications officer. Then we'll talk about what to expect. Recent operations that we've done here in the state, and Waverly happened to be one of those. What to expect if you want to join the Guard, the training that we do, and why it's just not a big deal, whatever age you are. And then we'll talk about some of the courses that we do. Tom's very familiar with our organization and classes that we take. And I'm going to be taking some classes next couple weeks there at Citgo Drive at TEMA headquarters. So who are we? Well, we are a military organization. We are comprised of both prior military and non-prior. We are kind of a reserve force to the reserves, in other words, to the National Guard. We are tied at the hip with the National Guard, and we do have some military responsibilities, but most of our responsibilities, our missions, are really focused in on civil types of affairs, like the disaster in Waverly, the tornado that is right over here, right? All of those sort of things that we can do. And one of the big training things that we do right now is getting ready for an earthquake in West Tennessee. And we do a lot of stuff with the Guard pertaining to that. And we are very different from the Guard in a couple ways. First off, the National Guard, as I was explaining earlier to some of you folks, is actually got two allegiances. One to the governor of Tennessee. It is the Tennessee National Guard. But they also have an allegiance to the Pentagon, so the federal government. And that's actually where they get their funding for everything the National Guard does. The Tennessee State Guard, although we're brothers in everything that we do, we are only responsible to the state of Tennessee and the governor of the state of Tennessee. We do not answer to any federal request. Like I said, it's more about the citizenry of Tennessee. We are a complement, like I said, to the National Guard. We train with the National Guard in some areas. Obviously, we're not going to be training with them in some of their combat missions. Artillery or the 278th Engineering Battalion that is in this area, we don't train with them in that mode. Like I said, the idea is for us to be a multiplication factor to the National Guard, especially in civil affairs. Does that mean that we don't have some responsibilities? Absolutely, and I'll talk about that in our history, what is traditional military types of things. We do have all sorts of people within the Guard, and one of those is a very large group of medical staff. So we are able to not just deal with traffic control or radio traffic and messages and stuff like that, We have an MP battalion for military police, and most of those people in the MP realm are either sheriffs or police officers in their own area. So they know the law, all right, and they do wear their MP badges. We have an engineering group. I am a mechanical engineer, not electrical, but I do have a lot of interest in electronics. I've been on boards and stuff like that. But there are different kinds of groups within the State Guard that supports all of these missions. So you can see how with all of those things combined, we can be self-contained in dealing with a crisis ourselves, except for things like transportation. And for that, we depend on the National Guard to provide, the Air National Guard to provide helicopters and stuff like that for us. We do have a rather large religious community. We have chaplains in each one of our regiments, and they have their own hierarchy within the State Guard. We do a lot of HF types of communications, as you could guess, but then again, we do a lot of the VHF, UHF. And of course, the Mars channels are typically where we're doing all of that. We're not going to be on your typical ham bands to communicate within. Not that we're trying to keep things secret, but we know that Mars is a restricted place for us to communicate only between us and the National Guard. Okay, questions about that part of it? Does that make sense to you why that's the case?
Do you operate any of the sheriff's frequencies?
We do, but not typically on missions, but yes, absolutely. And we are actually, as I had told you earlier, in the interoperability process of trying to understand how we can communicate with folks better within TEMA, the National Guard, police units, and so forth. And by the way, the one reason that you guys are really important in all of this is you got to understand that the National Guard, they're going to be a lot younger than pert near anybody in this room. And so they've been taught how to use our radio. Anybody a radio guy from the military, past military experience? No. So, they're told to hit this switch, dial this, and we're done, right? You guys are a lot beyond that, right? All of us as ham radio operators have the gift of being able to troubleshoot and find ways around things, right? With the younger folks, that's not what they've been trained to do. Your work is self-trained. So that's why you're important to the interest of the State Guard. As an S6 officer, I have several ham radio operators that are under my command, and that's what I'm here to try to tell you about, okay? Typically, like I said, we don't do a combat type of mission. We do security from time to time, but even when it's civil, we don't go armed. That doesn't mean that we wouldn't be prepared if we were asked to do some sort of other type of security mission in support of the National Guard. So the organization itself, like I said, we report to the governor of Tennessee, and I've got on there Major General Holmes, who is the TAG. That's the Tennessee Adjutant General. The TAG is the top within the ranks of the National Guard. Okay, so he is our boss. All right, and we do have a change of command for General Holmes. I just did not get that on there. And then we have a new command as well for the State Guard, and that's Brigadier General Stewart, and that's him being sworn in November. And this is General Holmes. You notice the difference in the uniforms. The State Guard still wears the digital camo. Of course, the National Guard, as part of the regular, what we call the Big Army, is wearing their standard OPC fatigues. All right, so that's how you can distinguish between us, even in a crowd. And this is the website if you have an interest in seeing that we are actually part of the Tennessee government. Go to tn.gov/military, and you'll find a pull down there. You'll find TEMA there. They're part of the military department of Tennessee, as well as the State Guard and the National Guard. Each one of us have our own web page. We'll talk about that a little bit. And there's our web page for the Department of Military as a whole. So the State Guard, like I said, is responsible to Governor Bill Lee, General Holmes as the Adjutant General, the National Guard General, and then the State Guard General reports to him. All right. Then we have 4 regiments within the Tennessee State Guard. All right. We have the 1st Regiment, which is everything west of the Catfish Curtain. Oh, sorry, the Tennessee River. Sorry, growing up in Waverly, there was Camden over there. There was Waverly over here. There's Iron Curtain, Bamboo Curtain. We had the Catfish Curtain. So anyway, one of my dad's jokes.
Right there too. So. Right on the river, actually.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Interesting. So the 2nd Regiment is Middle Tennessee, all right, which is where I am. And then we got a 3rd Regiment in Greenville, Tennessee. That's Knoxville and east of Knoxville, as well as the Chattanooga, which is the 4th Regiment. Inside of the 2nd Regiment, the 2nd Regiment is in the same spot that division headquarters is at Sidco Drive. So Sidco has their own group that's operationally the headquarters. And then the 2nd Regiment, we actually drill in Lebanon. We are separate as a field unit versus the headquarters unit. And so a lot of the fun stuff happens in the 2nd Regiment versus headquarters, as you can imagine. Any ex-military folks here? A few, right? If you wanted to have fun, get out in the field. Anyway, so within HHC, what we call the division headquarters, there is the 911th MP Battalion and the 61st Medical Battalion as well. All right. And like I said, we have doctors, we have nurses, we have nurse practitioners, and they served very well during the COVID-19. I'll talk a little bit about that as well. And like I said, we do have MPs, actually just not in the 9/11. We also have MPs assigned to each regiment. So this is a gathering of us that we were actually in the midst of presenting General Smith as the new State Guard General. This is a function where we've got doing some medical, like I mentioned, the 51st Medical or Medco. I think it's now a battalion, not a company. But you see that if you can see it closely where you can here, you notice this is a National Guardsman. Okay, so we serve the National Guard. I'm really trying to drive home that we are part of the National Guard. We are not, although our history is a militia, this is not going to be your standard militia that you hear bad things about. We are attached to the government, okay? The government of Tennessee. So this is some of the fun stuff that we did not too long ago, the comm stuff, certainly targeting you guys a little bit. We're out in the field with our mobile units, doing various things. And one of the things that we have gotten into a lot is called TAC, the Tactical Attack Kit. For military service, that's what it's called. For us in the, when we use it for civilian, it's the Team Awareness Kit. But the idea is being able to use cell phones that each one of us would have and be able to track our assets, people being the assets. So we know where our folks are, we know where the enemy is, if there is such, if we're looking for people, you know, if we're doing a search and rescue, we know where all of our assets are and we can redirect those. So some of you have seen this in movies and so forth. So this is a military use in civilian requirements, okay? And here's some of my guys putting up one of their antennas. This is one of my guys, Roach is in Livingston. If you want to get on the net and find him, he's an awesome operator. He's he should belong with you guys. I'm kind of still a greenhorn at doing ham. I'm typically not a ham, but when all my guys are, just as a manager that's being a captain, right? You should know something about what they're doing. So I'll get my license actually next month. And so these are the military police, so some of the unit. And gals, you see that there are females in the Tennessee State Guard. So there's a spot for you in any capacity you want, whether it's medical, whether it's communications, we don't care, okay? Oops. So we were out at Cedars of Lebanon in October, and this is another one of the things that we do is search and rescue. All right, so we're getting training from our counterparts in the Park Service. So they taught us how to do man tracking, not for just escaped convicts or something that the police are looking for, but the same thing would be doing if you're doing some sort of rescue mission. So we have training of all different types, different interests, and we have a team that actually is getting qualified to do search and rescue with specific organizations within Tennessee. Some of these are law enforcement folks, some of these are the team of folks. There's all sorts of people that specialize in search and rescue, all right? You don't want just anybody out there. You're not going to take your entire unit that's not trained and go traipsing through the woods, because next thing you know, that one of them gets to be a casualty or they get lost, right? So this is, there are different kinds of rescues and searches that the folks in the Park Service told us about. One is a very quick type of sweeping type of look. Another is like I said, the man tracking type of situation. There's also military honors when the National Guard does not have enough folks to actually lay to rest any service members, then we fill in as well. And they're highly trained. The point I'm trying to also say here, guys, gals, we do training all the time. It is specialized in areas that you're interested in, all right? You don't have to get involved if you don't want to, all right? And that is one thing that's, again, different between us and the National Guard. National Guard is paid. We're all volunteers. We do drill once a month, just like the National Guard does, but we do it out of the desire to serve the citizenry of Tennessee, right? And we do have extended missions that we do. I'll show you one that we did in Milan not too long ago. We do have one of, in our regiment, we have a young lady that is doing the S1 shot. S1 is what most of us would know is the human relationship part of taking care of our folks, right? Making sure that they get their training logged, make sure that they get their promotions on time, make sure they get their team of training in, ICS classes. We do have some that are required for state guardsmen. And then we're doing drone reconnaissance. Some of the guys, that's one of their interests. And we're trying to bring that together with the other things we do. With comms that we do, we practice between comms and going out and doing searches with drones. And again, the National Guard, for some reason, cannot use drones. I don't know what the issue is there, but they rely on the State Guard to do that. And this gear belongs to the guardsmen, okay? So I can't say if you get in it what you, or you get out of it what you put into it. So all my gear is stuff I've bought, whether it's radio gear or whatever, all right? We don't have a budget within the state legislature. We would love to have one, but that's not the case. So just like your ham gear, guys, you know, you may get permission from somebody in your household to buy the gear, but it's up to you, right? And the kind of people you are is that's what you want to share when you're here doing all sorts of different events. You want to share. You got a basement full of gear that has been donated. That's just the kind of folks that you guys are. So the history is that it did kind of start after the Civil War as a militia to kind of watch over what was going on after the federal troops pulled out. And then after that, it was part of a unit that was dispatched in 1812 against the British. You can read the list here: Davy Crockett and Sam Houston when they were state guardsmen. Okay? As was Alvin York, I think I got his name. Yeah, his name's mentioned there as well. We were deactive. We were really active during the Second World War. So most of the guards within the National Guards within the country were deployed overseas. And so the Tennessee State Guard was left with the responsibility of guarding certain facilities in Tennessee that were of some importance. One of those was the Milan ammunition facility. Another one was Oak Ridge, and on and on. Any of the power generating facilities were guarded by state guardsmen. And yes, they did carry their rifles and stuff. Culture's a little bit different now, so just be aware of that. So recent operations, like I said, we were in Waverly helping out with a disaster there and catering to the citizens of Waverly and providing food and shelter and anything else that we could do for them. We did not do the search and rescue. That was up to the team of folks to do that with their teams that are trained to deal with those kind of situations. So we do what we need to do to support other organizations within our state. We did a lot of COVID testing. You can imagine with a large number of guardsmen as nurses, doctors, or nurse practitioners, they were deployed as part of the National Guard doing testing throughout the state. Okay. And you couldn't tell between a state guardsman and a National Guard. And that was on purpose because they did not wear their uniforms. Even the National Guard didn't do that. Recently, we were in Knoxville to do security for the Knoxville Air Show. It's just something that you do. There's things that we do that seem to be mission-based, and there's other things that are just support of the community. All right. And this was one of those things that we did in Knoxville. All right. Supplying that kind of control, command and control over the ground parts of the air show. Joint emergency response. Tom's very familiar with the JOC, the JOC, which is a Joint Operations Center. They're in his offices there at Sigco Drive, and we man stations as well in the JOC, along with the National Guard. And a lot of that is in the communications area. Like I said, we do have the Honors Guard. We did Toys for Tots at Titan Stadium, taking just, again, just a community service. People see a uniform and it presents itself as some sort of authority of some type. And then some years ago, we were deployed actually for the Katrina hurricane event down in Mississippi and Alabama. There are things, if you have any interest, we have an interest in you guys. Okay. You say, I'm too old for this. No, you're not. I'm 67. Okay. And remember, you've got skill sets that, I'm safe in saying this, the kids don't have, right? Even those that are in the military, they don't have the skill sets that you present. And that's why the Tennessee State Guard is looking for operators. Okay. And we'd love for you guys to come join us in the 2nd Regiment, not at HHC. If you want to have fun along with the things that we do, be sure and tell them that you want to be in the 2nd Regiment. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck in some sort of staff job and pretty boring.
What happens after 67? So you got pasture?
No, it's not a set limit. There are a lot of people that are way older than 67, okay, in the State Guard. So we don't force people out to pasture, all right? It is a matter of the skill sets that you bring, right? You don't have to be physically fit, look, the body by Krispy Kreme is okay. All right. You do, you can be as young as 67. So if you have some kids that are, or grandkids that are over 18 and they need something to do, something to give them purpose or something, talk to them about joining us, even if it's just for a year. And we don't tell you that you have to sign up. There's no contract here. It's all voluntary, just like you guys as officers. If you walk out, we wish you would come back, but there's no contract bringing you in. Okay. You do need to have a diploma. We do background checks. So Dan, just be aware. And this, I'm not sure which. I think this is done by the FBI, but I couldn't say that categorically. It is preferred that you have been in the military, but none of you guys, other than Dan, that's not required. I'm non-prior. I've never been in the military. Okay. And about half the guardsmen are not prior military people. All right. We don't do the pomp and ceremony that you would associate with being in the Army. Do we do some marching? We try to do a little bit each drill just to make sure that we know how to do that if we're asked to and present to a general. I'll tell you this. We had our awards banquet earlier in this month, and we were down in Tullahoma, and I was given an award, and I went up and saluted the general smartly. He gave me the award. We turned to take pictures, and then I turned to go sit down, and I went, "Dummy, you're supposed to salute." And I just back to salute him, and I was kind of embarrassed, but there were a lot of chuckles about it, and that's the way it is. I mean, we want to present a professional viewpoint, but you're not going to be thrown in the brig.
Is there a master list anywhere of every function that's available, or maybe what skill sets are desired or being sought after?
That's a great question. So let me tell you, if you bring a skill set and have a particular interest that you think can contribute to the State Guard or to our missions, start it up. That's what our guys did on search and rescue. There were about 4 guys in our unit that said, we want to do this. So they got together a team of folks. They started contacting various people to try to get trained, and they're still in that process. We've had some training, but there's actually some extensive training that you have to do for.
There's kind of an entrepreneurial spirit.
It is.
Entrepreneurial.
Absolutely.
Internally, you
yes, sir.
see a need, you create a unit to support that need.
That's correct. And so the interest that you guys have, obviously, is about communications. And like I said, we go the entire spectrum. But we've got a real need. We do okay with HF, okay, with base stations, but we're struggling a little bit with trying to get good mobile communications. So I'm kind of interested in what guy's going to bring along here in a couple of weeks. And I just bought a spider mask so that I can get out in the field and use something that's easy to use. And I bought a 5100A like you guys have back here and use it in repeat mode because line of sight, right, issues that we have, and trying to stay comms enabled with our field units, right, in search and rescue. That's a problem. They get a couple miles out, we can't even talk to them. So you got suggestions? I'd love to hear them. Or better yet, come and join us.
Get a big lanyard. Not that kind of facetious.
Well, that's interesting that you should say that. General Stewart is ex-com's commander himself, and we're trying to get some 1,000-watt generators, not generators, that's the wrong terminology, amplifiers from the National Guard, because they got some spares, and We might get that. We'll see. But you get the idea here, guys, that there is a place for you if you have an interest in being with us. And we do drill 1 day out of the month, minimum. I said minimum, yeah. I'm doing stuff all the time. I'm here with you guys tonight. I've done, we got a team that's going to be with Tom and crew down in Smyrna next week for 3 days. Some of my guys work at SARX. And so you say, you know, I'm retired. I got some time. And that's kind of me. I'm not retired yet, but I'm about to retire. And I was looking for something to do. And this is a great way to serve the community and have some fun in things I'm interested in, right? And bring a skill set that is very important. You couldn't tell by Fred, the guy from Livingston, but Fred's older than I am. So, and he's only been on the guard about a year. So that 67 limit, it's not a limit. If you have a special skill set, we do waive that from time to time. Now, if you're 90, okay, guys, that's a little bit too much of a risk. That's not going to happen. We do have annual training, 3 days a year, that we are expected to do along with. But if you can't make it, you can't make it. All right. This is not like the National Guard where you're going to be, they don't get thrown in the parade, but they get written up or they're pay docked if they're not at drill. We don't do that. Okay. There are what we call TO&E slots for very special needs. So by that, I mean, even if you have some sort of condition that you may feel like that, oh, you can't be the state guard. That's a military unit. Doesn't matter if you're in a wheelchair. Okay. If you have a special skill that can be valuable to the community, then we're going to use you. We have TO&E slots for that. Yes, sir.
What is TO&E?
Table of Organization and Equipment.
Thank you.
Table of Organization and Equipment.
So it's basically a list of all the needs within a unit, what they're authorized. We have engineering TO&E slots. We have HR slots. And so forth and so forth and so forth. And there is no enlistment contracts, like I said. So there is an initial training we ask you to go through. This is not going out and doing calisthenics, guys, gals. It's not what it is. All right. This kind of training is how do you act as a guardsman, more military-like. How do you salute? How do you stand at attention? Things like that. Then we go out and we do some of the things that we expect most guardsmen to be able to do, like using maps, map training. Okay. We do containment. There at Smyrna, where the training base is for the National Guard, we have a facility that's got a chain link around it, and we kind of use that as well, it's actually set up with guard towers and stuff as like a prison. So how do we kind of make it a game. We split into a couple teams, and one team's trying to get into the facility to rescue their buddies, and the other team's trying to keep them out, and, using hand grenades that are actually walnuts. There's a couple walnut trees. Yeah, so we do have fun with this, all right? This is actually at the Smyrna facility. These are guardsmen, state guardsmen, okay? These are state guardsmen as well, okay? You're not required to have all the gear, but we do give you a list of things to try to go out and get. One of those is a helmet. Some guardsmen don't have helmets. They're expensive if you're going to get a ballistic, in other words, a bulletproof helmet. So go out and get a mountaineering helmet, Amazon, $60, right? That sort of thing. All right. Make sure it's black. Okay. It doesn't have to be camouflage. The idea there, the requirement for that is because if you get on an Army helicopter, you have to have on head protection. Okay. This is not because you're going to go out and dig a trench and hold a facility. Okay, that's not what we're doing. All right.
Which FEMA courses do you require or
Yes.
suggest?
Yes, there are requirements online. 100. We like to do 300, 200. There's a list of about 8 of them.
So like our communications, we go 1, 2, 7, and 8.
And those are not required for the state guard,
Right.
but absolutely valuable to do. And some of us are looking to do that, just like 300 and 400 are not required by the state guard. That's, for those of you not familiar with this, this is about incident management. Okay. So if you've got a fire over here across the street and there's gas tanks involved, maybe a tanker, you got an incident commander. Okay. And how that's been set up and the organization of that. So those courses teach you how to do those sort of things, right? And some of the other classes that we take, 800's another one we take, 900, but there's about 8 classes. And there is an award. This is for something called MIMS, military. I can't remember. Can you help me out, Tom? What MIMS is about?
Well, there's NIMS, which is
NIMS.
National Incident Management System.
That's
So
different.
maybe
But
NIMS is
but this is-
Military Incident Management System or something.
yeah, MIMS is actually most states. There's 36 of the states have state guards. Okay, and this is the organization of state guards. Okay, so you're not in this alone. Okay, Texas is one of the few that actually pays their state guards. Kind of interesting. So this is at our banquet, and we do wear dress blues like you would see in the movies of the military in their fines, as they would say. This is at our facility in Lebanon. It's the National Guard facility, but they got this gym and a full kitchen. It's a very nice place, unlike the headquarters at Citgo Drive is pretty crappy. It's like pre-World War II or something like that. But our facility for the 2nd Regiment is really nice.
Is there a facility at the airport out there in Lebanon?
Yes, exactly. That's the one.
West side of the field?
Same one
That's
they
who
do.
the gun shows at.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Tom?
Yeah.
You're about to lose your phone.
Am I?
Got
Got it. Thanks.
This is at the banquet. This is some of the HHC guys. But again, the point is you see it's not always this. We do it once a year where we're in dress blues and celebrate being members of the State Guard and awards and so forth throughout the unit. I think that's it. So questions you guys may have about your Tennessee State Guard. Sorry.
If you don't feel like asking him in public, I'm sure he'll stick around.
Oh, yeah,
a
I'll
little
hang
while.
around.
You know, if you want to talk one-on-one on him with him, and I know a lot of people have stage fright, so
Dave,
not
I
this group usually, but
I apologize if you mentioned this. I was taking some notes on
That's all right.
the previous part of the meeting or when you started. Did you mention how many amateur radio operators you may have already members?
In the 2nd Regiment, we've got a major, we got Roach, we got Rhodes. We've got 4 in our regiment. We could use many more because that's one of our prime missions in the 2nd Regiment. Okay.
And that's 4 out of what's your total roster?
The roster is probably about 50.
Do you want to do it for mobile, did you say?
Well, it doesn't have to be. It's just, it's hard to lug your base unit. You're gonna, take it. It's like when you guys do your stuff down here. You may bring your base station, but all that gear that you have to bring, and our ham guys do bring their base stations, and but it's a pain. It's not really, and this is me doing this, is trying to get more mobile. It's not that it's a requirement from the State Guard. It's that myself sees the need, And so talking to my guys about how can we meet the need of mobility. Do they still have their base stations and bring them? Yeah. Okay. You can have guys got to have a radio that's this big, right? It's got to weigh 60 pounds. But
Do they have go boxes and portable?
we
rigs?
do. We do have go boxes in the 1st Regiment. For some reason, I don't know what happened to our go boxes in the 2nd Regiment, but we don't have any 2nd Regiment. Yeah. A drop box for those who are,
Closet somewhere.
huh?
Maybe tucked away in a closet somewhere.
Probably at HHC, probably at CPO Drive somewhere. Yeah.
Do you get reimbursed for your expenses?
No.
This is all voluntary.
Zero budget.
Yeah, 0 budget.
Where are the drills usually held?
For 2nd Regiment, we're there at Lebanon at the National Guard facility. We share that with the National Guard. Now, when we do divisional things, which is they do something every month at division, that's at CPO Drive. And but we typically don't attend except for the first couple officers. The XO and the commander will go, but typically we don't.
How do they award the rank?
Great question. So we have a recruiter. I'm not the recruiter, okay? That takes the information that you present in kind of a resume format, and they view what your experiences are and so forth, and determine a rank. Okay. If you have an interest in doing that, be sure and apply everything. One of my guys, I didn't know him when he was being recruited, Fred Roach. He was a GS-13. For any of you that know anything about government, so he was not the bottom of the totem pole. He was a manager and a fairly high manager in the government. He didn't put any of that information down, and he ended up as a private. Now that said, there's a colonel in the National Guard that is responsible for communications. Okay, and one of our guys in HHC, really smart guy, in communications, introduced Fred, this private, to this colonel, full bird colonel. All right, and they got to talking. First thing he said, this is Chief Simpson. Chief says, "Don't look at his rank because it's not a reflection of who he is," and it's not. Okay. And when Fred started talking to this guy, his eyes lit up. And then he starts talking about all the things he wants to do with the State Guard. And Fred's just eating it up. And here's what we can do. And so these guys are doing this, right? And he now understands, the colonel does, why the rank doesn't mean anything. Okay. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
It's a matter of honor. Now, if you have a college education, you're going to be an officer of some type. And likely, if you're not prior military, you're going to start out as a second lieutenant. Okay. And then work to a first lieutenant and a captain and major. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. But it's a great question. Pays about the same.
Anybody else? Dave, thank you.
All right.
Sure.
Anybody have anything else?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Could you take a minute before you go and talk about your little go box there? for
Sure.
portable
Be
system?
happy to. Sure.
Motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
All opposed? Carried. Thank you, everybody. See you next month or next Monday on the net. Everybody's welcome to hang out. Dave can hang out.
You know, Dan Enterprise.
I know the name, but I do not know
Okay, he
him.
joined maybe a couple months ago.
Okay.
He's a